Last panel, we're going to invite our three guests onto the stage. Lucy from Novartis Foundation. Lucy, please make your way up here. We've got Janice from Quadria Capital and Zoom from Ominext Group. Let's start with introductions here. Just quick fire from each of you. Lucy, we'll start with you.
So first of all, big thank you. I couldn't say how much this opportunity means actually to me to be here today, because it's very hard to meet the health and technology community of Vietnam pretty much at the same space. And that's what I was discussing last time with Hawkins. Incredible opportunity for actually you, his team, bringing all of you guys together here. So my name is Lucy Setian. I'm the Director of Digital Transformation at the Novartis Foundation. We are a Swiss not-for-profit foundation, part of the larger Novartis family, but working as an autonomous and independent organization with a pretty complex mandate, which is to improve the health of low-income populations. So what we actually work on and what I spend majority of my time is health equity. Health equity, you might ask, well, that's like a huge topic, so what is it? So it's two things for me when I explain it to people. It's on one side, not only giving access to every single one of us to health services, but also the same level of quality. So as you imagine, all of you in the room make this job possible, and we are trying to serve as an enabling catalyst in this process by working with governments and private and public sector partners to make this happen. And in my job particularly, I focus quite a lot on innovation through data and technology, which is why actually I'm back to Ho Chi Minh City, working with local authorities and our great partners from PAT and other organizations on delivering a fundamentally transformative digital health service, which is completely owned by the health city authorities of Ho Chi Minh City. This service is going to change quite a lot for the city, so I'm going to share a bit more later today, but this is why I'm back. And the second reason why I'm actually back is to meet all of you, because we are looking to create also maybe an initiative looking at putting Vietnam and Southeast Asian startups and scale-ups, health tech startups and scale-ups on the map as the leading driving force for transformation of health systems. Thank you.
Gio, Tuxi, make sure you find her after this. Janice, we'll have an intro from you.
Sure, thank you. Great to be here today. When I first got introductions from Hawkins, I thought it was a great chance to really learn from all the stakeholders in the healthcare industry, from the public to the private, consumers, technology, and bring it all together. And I think, in a system where there was predominantly by public sector, for the first time we have voice of the younger generations that and of different sectors that gathers to brainstorms how we make it better for all of us. So yeah, my name is Janice, comes from Quadria Capital. We are one of the largest healthcare-focused private equity fund in Asia, focusing on South and Southeast Asia. Been in Vietnam, healthcare for quite a long time. Healthcare, Quadria Capital is actually founded by doctors and physicians, as well as ex-healthcare executives in other parts of the world coming to Asia 20 years ago, seeing the gaps between a very nascent private healthcare sector and the need to bring not just capital, but also expertise, quality control, network ecosystem to reinforce and help it grow and scale faster. So very happy to be here today and look forward to learn from all the panelists.
So if you need money, go talk to Janice. Quadria Capital, by the way, owns 49% of FV, one of the biggest hospitals, private hospitals in Vietnam. Over to Zoom, founder and CEO of Ominext Group. Focused on technology.
Yes.
Love an intro from you.
Thank you for having me today. My name is Tran. Please call me Chan. I use Chan in Japan.
Gotcha.
Actually, I study and I have been working in Japan for 18 years. I'm still living in Japan, not in Vietnam. I just come here for this meeting yesterday evening.
Wow, welcome.
And I'm going to move back to Japan next week. And I'm a CEO of Ominext Group, and I think that no one knows my company. Who knows my company? Raise your hand. you just know my company maybe 1 hour before. Okay, doesn't matter, but I won't tell you later about my company. My background was I was a researcher, IT researcher. After graduate from National University, I research on image processing in Information Technology Institute, Vietnamese Academy of Science and Technology in Vietnam. And I moved to Japan to study in 2005. And I worked in Japanese company as a programmer, an engineer. And then 2012, I at the place Ominext Group. I was a researcher, but my dream is to become a doctor, really. When I was a student, I thought that I will devote my life to the medical and healthcare domain. I want to use my technology knowledge to contribute to the healthcare and domain. That's why, when I'm running a medical IT and healthcare IT business in Japan. I have a company based in Tokyo and development centers in Vietnam. I have 600 engineers working in Hanoi, Ho Chi Minh City, and Japan. In more than 10 years, we have developed about 2,050 medical and healthcare systems and deployed to more than 10,000 medical facilities in Japan, including hospital, clinics, and pharmacies in Japan. And our systems, split out from the system for hospital, clinics, from the core system like EMR system to the system that help them to operate better in the facility, in the hospital. And also the system like health checkup system and the clinical test system that was used in Olympic Tokyo in 2012. And a lot of system for pharmacy and wellness, and especially PHR system, personal health record. That is our package that I developed in Japan, but I deploy in Japan, and that the system now used in many hospitals in Japan. When I introduced our company in Japan, everyone, Japanese companies say, "Wow, I don't believe that the small company in Vietnam can develop such kind of system," and I'm very proud of that. And today, I also have a lot of chance to talk with so many healthcare leaders in Japan, but this is the first time I have a chance to communicate with a lot of with people here, and I hope that I can learn and share information.
Great. Sounds like we need more healthcare summits. Sounds like, so the three of you have quite the experience, not just only here, but outside. And today we've got mostly industry professionals from Vietnam here, and I want to take the opportunity to share some case studies about successful implementations and projects that you think could work here or could be useful for the audience here. And I'll start with Lucy. Lucy, I understand as Director of Digital Transformation, you've done projects everywhere, including Africa. Arguably, I don't know anything about the healthcare system over there, but it's got its, I'm sure, many more challenges than Vietnam in a way. Why don't we just start there? Or maybe there's other markets that you can highlight. What are some exciting new models of care that you think could work in a place like Vietnam that have in other developing markets?
So things are changing so fast with the power of technology that things that might have worked like 24 months ago. For sure, not going to work in the next 24 months, unless anyone disagrees. That's my view, at least. What we have seen maybe during the pandemic, but also after the pandemic, is actually innovation was a good thing during the pandemic. And the previous panelists already mentioned that. For example, if we look at the African continent, where actually I spent, I would say, majority of my time, besides Vietnam, lately at least, is that there is a huge defragmentation, first of all, in funding, which comes to the continent. So investments, when I talk about funding, I mean real equity level investments in companies which have innovative health tech technologies. It's extremely low. Why? Because foreign investors, they really don't know the continent. So they first wonder, isn't this like a big risk? Second, the health sector. Health sector is one of the most regulated ones, so the level of risks increase even more. And to add to the picture, governments, so the different countries have different level of maturity of their policies when it comes to data policies for health, technology policies for health, innovation and procurement policies. So the spectrum is so large in terms of what, but also what is the level of maturity of these public policies applied, that it creates a lot of blockages for companies to innovate. So on one side, we are looking at the problem of financing and funding, and on the other side, we're looking at the problem which the governments are facing, which is really getting up to speed with potentially some best practice examples from the more developed countries, I would say, around the world, or the more developed government systems. So what we're trying to do, at least in Africa, is we have set up with partners, currently the leading health tech accelerator for health tech startups, essentially. So we launched it over 1.5 years ago, and I'm giving it as an example because today exactly with one of the startups in the room, actually, I was asking them when they were looking for an accelerator program in Vietnam, was there one only for health tech? And they told me, we looked hard, there was not one for health tech. I mean, it's a country of nearly 100 million people, and there is nothing dedicated to health tech. So how come?
Will you be launching an accelerator here?
We'll see.
Okay.
Maybe some of you, if you're interested, we're looking for partners. So let's come talk to me after this. So why am I giving this example? So we started with a very big partner, which actually comes from the venture world. It's an organization called Norscan, which did a capital investment to build the largest co-working space in Africa. So it's huge. It's a huge campus. So there we created this accelerator, which aims to solve a two-sided problem. On one side, raise the level of maturity of health tech companies for them not to die a slow death. Okay, so really raise the level, bring money to them so that they can cross the valley of death. The second problem, which we're trying to solve, is work with the governments to help them innovate and to help them demonstrate how some of these companies can help solve public problems in the health system. So this makes the accelerator pretty unique because we're looking for innovations that don't have only the B2C and B2B business models, but also the B2G, so the business to government monetization strategies, and options, public-private partnership opportunities. So we create a lot of case studies, if you want, or challenges, like we did with the governments of Rwanda and the governments of Senegal, to actually tackle very specific public health areas. For us, this is cardiovascular health because that's the area of expertise of the Novartis Foundation, to actually solve some of these challenges with the help of health tech innovation companies like the ones from our portfolio. To give you an idea of the success which we had in just 1 year from the program, in 6 months' time, the 30 startups we supported, they're all early stage companies, they managed to raise about $10 million. They had an increase of impact from 100,000 people on the continent, meaning beneficiaries, so people using their solutions and services, to over 600,000 people. We're talking 6 months only, okay? And they managed to create over 100 new jobs in their companies. So this creates huge capacity on the continent, which is exactly the same type of needs I personally see here. How to nurture more jobs, how to create more jobs, how to create more business for health tech solutions here, how to bring the policy ecosystem on the right kind of level to nurture public-private partnerships with companies which can actually change something for the health system. So now we're in the end of the first year of this accelerator, and apparently it was successful because we got a huge support from organizations like the Global Fund, the McGovern Foundation, who are coming on board with over $1 million in funding for the next cohort. And in the next cohort, we're also looking at scale-ups. How can we support really more mature companies and how we can increase their acceleration across multiple countries in the region, because we're running a hybrid accelerator with also a physical co-working space for over 100 people. So that's what we're doing there, and we're trying to bring some of this, potentially bring some of these ideas here. Because we believe in local innovation. All of this that I explained is because we believe in local innovation, and there are a lot of good business models there, and a lot of good, I would say, ideas for innovations. However, all of these problems are there. Now, what are we doing in Vietnam? Maybe just, if we have time, I'll explain briefly. Over one year and something, we actually started working with the Department of Health and the Center for Disease Control in Ho Chi Minh City on a very big problem, cardiovascular health. And I know, Hawkins, we talked a lot about that. For those of you who actually don't know, non-communicable diseases are they're the leading cause of death around the world. More specifically, over 31% of people in Vietnam die because of a cardiovascular event. And this is what we're trying to change with the local authorities. With the power of technology, and I would say slightly more advanced technology, we want to essentially increase the speed to diagnosis. We want to accelerate early detection and also increase the level of actually even the most basic knowledge for preventable cardiovascular risks. So who in the audience actually know what is a cardiovascular risk? Raise your hand if you have a clue of what is a cardiovascular. One person. Oh my God, two people, also from my team over there. Thank you. Well, cardiovascular risk is anything related to obesity, so how fit you are, how much you move, essentially linked to that. Do you have history in your family of any cardiovascular issues? So do you smoke? So all kind of things which are preventable, and also the level of cholesterol, so your diet. So in case you like to eat things with salt, and I'm sure that a lot of you do because we all love seafood, these are the type of things which, if you modify, you can actually change the narrative of your health journey from the onset on. So even before you get a stroke. So think about the journey. And you mentioned young people, and that's why I'm saying that. When we're thinking of how can we design a health service completely owned and driven by the government, how can we do that for everyone? How can we make it so that someone who is in their 60s or over 60s, who is totally not a digital native, can actually use something like that? It's a pretty hard job. Can you tell me if you have parents or grandparents over 60, how many of them are using like these fancy mobile applications or any sort of a digital solution to manage their health? Raise your hand if you have a parent or grandparent who does that.
There's very few solutions.
Well, that's the point. So this is the point. So that's why we're thinking, how can we do that? And we thought early adopters. Who are the early adopters? Raise your hand if you have a device or an app that has anything to do with your health.
Oh, not bad.
Okay, so we're getting to the story. So we wanted to create a solution which is going to allow the people who actually are the early adopters to be the first users, and for them to actually help their own families and grandparents and parents by screening them for cardiovascular risk with a very, very simple tool, which takes them 30 seconds of work on a mobile phone with no extra added solutions. Super simple, super easy. So anyone can do a screening. You can do a screening for your friend, for your grandparents. And the best part is we work also with the private sector for that. So we work with private pharmacies. We're looking now for big partners like GeoHealth we were discussing last time I was here. How can we integrate better a public health service solution with the private sector and the reality of the private sector context of Vietnam, which is quite fragmented, I would imagine. So we were also looking at public hospitals. You wouldn't be surprised to know that if you want to take an appointment in a public facility in Vietnam or Ho Chi Minh City, let's just stick to the area where I work, you cannot book an appointment. How many of you have queued in a public hospital? Raise your hand. Okay, so, no booking system, except yesterday when we met with the hospital of Taduk, they actually introduced a mobile app where you can actually finally take a booking. How innovative is that? So we're going to be working with organizations within the public health context, hospitals that are actually driving the innovation. We're going to create ambassadors for this because we want to embed our digital service with their work. Super important. Integration is the key. So I stopped there because I gave you already too many hints.
Sure.
But we'll continue later, I'm sure.
No, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Lucy. Going along the trends of my initial question, which is quite fascinating for this audience here, new models of care or things that you've seen. I'll move it to Janice next. You've invested in, Quadria has invested in companies across the region. What models have you guys invested in that are not seen here yet or not seen here yet? Let's start there.
This is a difficult question. Actually, I would say that what we have seen and benefits from doing this across the region is we are seeing a lot of similar examples of how healthcare has changed in terms of where patients get treated, how they get treated, when they get treated, and everything happened in between. So I wouldn't say that it's a changing business model, but it's definitely changing in terms of technical adoptions and how these healthcare institutions change themselves to adopt to the new way of delivering healthcare. So for example, what Lucy mentioned, right, cardiovascular disease, what we find out is in Vietnam, the wait time between patients get admitted to interventional cardiology, which is when it's an emergency, is anywhere from an hour onwards. And this is when 90% of death happened. And the average in other market, just in Southeast Asia, not even mention other part of the world, just in Southeast Asia is anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes. So the 30 minutes that you see actually requires 15 years of work and of the system changing the way that hospitals operates. So what we do is, we foster a lot of the conversations between our portfolio company in different parts of the world to share how exactly are you going to do it? How do you manage quality? How do you make sure that patient throughput is on time, right quantity, so that patient receive their care on time efficiently? Second, in the realms of where patients get their care from, as Lucy mentioned, right? It's not about you coming to a hospital. That's not the point that turns you from a consumer to a patient. Every one of us has some disease that we have to take care of in some shape or form. And more, we see the healthcare sector evolving from reactive to preventive healthcare. And what that means is the hospitals, the pharmacy that delivering healthcare doesn't just do the job at the facility. It's about following up. It's about, making sure that you actually make the patients aware of how the disease will develop and taking care of it before it becomes acute. So, a lot of companies talked about, different startups coming in the sectors that disrupt that model. And I also see a lot of older model hospital settings evolve themselves to provide preventive healthcare and healthcare in different settings. So those are the two examples I'm seeing. There's a lot more in the region that I think we are in a very early, but thankfully in the inflection stage of how consumers claim healthcare and the care of their own health into their hand and push the healthcare system to advance much faster.
Are you still investing in the current environment as well? That's my follow-up question.
We are always in the business of investing, especially when it's a tough market. That's always the best time to invest.
Very good. I think I answered the question for a lot of people out there. And Dung, next over to you. You've built a lot of solutions in Japan, which is a very sophisticated, advanced market. My question for you is along the same lines, but you as a Vietnamese, there's tons of problems that you see here that you feel like your team could help solve. What are those challenges that your team, if they were building solutions here, maybe that's why you're here, that you would seek to solve for healthcare in Vietnam?
I think that anyone know me will be aware of my constant support to the value-based healthcare model. I have seen this model spreading it out all over the world, and its effect to the medical system in US, Japan, Singapore, and especially in Australia. And before talking about this interesting features of this model, I would like to talk about. I would like to start with the problem with our current medical system. That is operating following the fee for service or pay for volume model. It means that the more tests the doctor gives to the patients, the more income they can earn. And the consequence is very easy to see that a lot of unnecessary tests are being given. And the patients have to pay with the long bill of so many tests is in the bill, and they don't know truly value they can earn. They are supposed to receive. And that is really the problem. Let's forget about my business, medical IT and healthcare IT in Japan. After 10 years, more than 10 years working in Japan, I really want to contribute something to Vietnamese medical system. But I had no idea, so what we gonna to start. But 3 years ago, I established a new company in Vietnam that is called Ominext. I start with pharmacies. You know that the population in Japan is bigger than Vietnam, but we have the same number of pharmacies as in Japan. And as one of our speakers said, that the pharmacists should now play a role as a GP in Japan. I think that pharmacies should play as a care hub or health station to care about the health for people in the area. That's why I want to. My dream is to make a primary care infrastructure in Vietnam based on the pharmacies. That's why I started with Omipharma.
So the idea is almost to have a frontline kind of point
Yes.
of care rather than going to the hospital directly. You can kind of go to kind of like a hospital light version, kind of
Yes.
see if there's self-care that you could.
Yes,
You can have.
that's the same thing in Malaysia and now in Japan. And everyone can go to the pharmacy and they have everything in the pharmacies. They can not only buy medicines but also OTC. I mean a lot of goods for health, and then consulting the health with pharmacists and telehealth with doctor, and sometimes can get the pre-subscription from the doctor and get medicines. And everything, they can, a lot of test machine inside the pharmacies, they can test their clinical vital signs in the pharmacy. Everything inside the pharmacy is placed like a care hub, like health station. I think it's very good for people. That's why I want to do the same thing in Vietnam.
Okay.
We develop a lot of such kind of system in Japan. So now I develop a Japanese style drugstore in Vietnam, which is a little bit bigger. The size, I mean the size of pharmacies is a little bit bigger compared with traditional pharmacies. It about 200 meter squares. But inside there's some pharmacies selling medicines and also selling some OTC supplements and vitamins imported from Japan. And then I will deploy a lot of healthcare information system to my pharmacy to make all-in-one, solution for the pharmacy.
Okay, very good.